So the facilitator for today's session is Ekaleshwari Madhavi Devidasi. Few of you might be knowing about her, and if anyone joining new, you'd know about her today. And so she is a very senior devotee in IYS and has been practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness for several years. And she has completed her MS in Cleans Technology in UK and is now in Boston, US after her marriage, but basically she's from Chennai. So she's a very amazing person and an excellent motivating speaker. Hope few of you have already, listened to her and interacted with her many a times. So she delivers rich, thought-provoking content, which will definitely help you in coping up with your real life issues as well as enrich you with devotion. So few of you might be thinking about who is Srila Prabhupada. And today, definitely, this session will help you to know about the founder Acharya of ISKCON, that is Srila Prabhupada. So IYS is ISKCON Youth Services of Chennai Temple, but it's not only based out of Chennai, it's all over the world now. I know few of you are across the world who are joining in today. And so it's a forum where like-minded girls come together, we discuss, we learn and apply the Vedic wisdom in our day-to-day life. So it also gives a platform to develop friendship with like-minded people and take spiritually open-heartedly. So we have IYS all over the world now. So you can find the WhatsApp link and the Facebook and Telegram link in the chat window. I hope the moderator would be sharing it. She has shared, Nitya Kishori has shared. So please join in those groups if you have not yet joined, especially the Facebook and the Telegram, and we are also present in Instagram. So please join and also kindly fill the feedback form after the session. So this is very, very important for us as we always repeat about the feedback form. So we choose from the topics that you send us. So please kindly fill up the form and post your questions. So we will take up the questions after the session is over. So over to you, Ekaleshwari Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Let me share my screen. Yes. You all can see the, yeah. Are you all able to see the slides? I can't see in the chat window.
Yeah, we can see, but you have to start presenting like you.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay. So before we start today's session, I welcome all of you. Thank you, Deepa Priya, for such a lovely introduction. Today, I'm going to present one of my favorite topics, and I really hope you enjoy this particular topic as much as I do. Um, yeah. Okay. Yes. So before we start, I would like to say some prayers. Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Jaya Pataka Swami Niti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nita Kripa Pradayani Gaurakata Damodaya Nagakramatarine Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashita Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So today the topic is the story of the greatest hero of modern times, your ever well-wisher. So this particular topic, I'll tell you what inspired me to take this topic. So yeah. So what happened was I was reading Ramayana. And when I was reading Ramayana, it was so interesting that the first question, Valmiki Muni, we all know Valmiki Muni is the author of Ramayana, right? So Valmiki Muni asks his spiritual master, he asks that is there a person who has all the virtues, meaning is like the person who is so wonderful there is nobody beyond him. Is there a hero who has all the virtues? I want to worship such a hero. So when I was reading this particular pastime, so this particular interaction with Valmiki and Narad Muni, I was thinking to myself, who is my hero? So anyway, what happens is Narad Muni hears this question and he knows the answer, but what happens is just thinking about this person, he became all emotional. He became thinking about this particular personality. He was filled with so much of ecstasy and devotion that he took some moment and then he answered, yes, there is one person who fits the hero that you are looking for. And he says it's Lord Ram. And then Narada Muni says few verses, pretty much which is a summary of the entire Ramayana. So when I was reading this particular pastime, in the footnote, the author of this particular Ramayana series, he was writing that how when we all have heroes, right? We all look up to somebody, we have role models, we have people that we are very attracted to. And this particular author, Shubh Vilas Prabhu, his name was. So he was writing that how the heroes that we choose always are good in one thing or two things. Let's say they are very, very beautiful or they are very intelligent. That's about it. Just because they are intelligent doesn't mean that they have good character. Just because they are brilliant doesn't mean that they have good leadership skills. You don't find a person that who is all rounder, who is magnificent in all quarters. And then that author was telling that how when we choose our heroes, we actually settle for somebody very, very less, somebody who is very similar to us. We are all very flawed human beings and we choose a very flawed hero. If we choose a hero who is brilliant in all aspects, then we will become brilliant following that hero's footsteps. So there's two quotes which I came about, which particularly like attracted me. If you read Warren Buffett, he's this investor and a billionaire and considered a very, very intelligent man. His quote is, if you can tell me who your heroes are, I can tell you who you are going to turn out. It's really important to have the right heroes. Sometimes our heroes could be this cricketer. When I was very young, somebody whom I really loved is Sachin Tendulkar. Or it could be some film star, it could be any other sports personality, or like Mother Teresa. Somebody would have all of that. So it is very, very important for us to find the right hero. So think Maya Angelou is another brilliant personality whom I really love. She says that I think a hero is any person really intent on making this a better place for all people. So it's very important to know who our heroes are, and it's important to find the right hero. And why? Because by choosing a right hero, by following in the footsteps of that brilliant hero, our life can become successful. I'll tell you why. Okay. So now this is a question for all of you. So I am going to have this polling thing where you are going to tell me what aspects or qualities you look for in your hero or role model. Okay. So you can choose multiple or you can choose one, whichever you prefer. So again, I'm repeating, you can choose multiple choices or just one, whichever you prefer or you think is what I am looking for in my hero or my role model. Okay, so there you go. So you will get the poll in your screen. So please do vote. Ooh. I think some of you have yet to vote. 30 seconds more. Yes. Hmm. Okay. Thank you very much for all of you that you have voted. Yes. So the highest is respectful and concerned for others, knowledgeable. The next would be brave and confident, truthful, not fake. Brilliant. Yes. Yes. Okay. That's awesome. So this is what you have all voted for. So respectful and concern for others is the highest, and then truthful. So many people have voted for so many things. That's nice. Okay. Okay. Now, so you all chose what aspects you're looking for in your heroes, right? Now, most of you have chosen most of the answers. Okay. That is because we all are looking for such a hero. And mostly you will not find such a hero who has all these qualities. Is it not? But there is one person who has all these qualities. His name is Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada possessed all these qualities. So when I was reading Ramayana, I've been reading Ramayana every day. When I was reading this particular pastime, which I was telling about, Valmiki asking this question, who is that hero? I would like to accept that hero. I would like to worship that hero. We all do hero worship, right? So even Valmiki was asking a very genuine question. It's very important. So then I remember thinking, who is my hero? Of course, Lord Ram is my hero, but who is my hero? And my hero is Srila Prabhupada. So he is this selfless human being, a person who is so determined. He never gave up. He's fearless. He's brave. We saw somebody who is not fake, who's truthful, who led by example. Truthful means what? Who does not have, who speaks the truth, yes, but is also does not have this twin personality. He's not fake. In front he's different and in back he's different. He's not like that. He led by example. He followed what he preached. Then somebody who was very fearless. We saw brave, confident, and somebody who wanted to spread love. He wanted to give, and only give. So now we will talk about, or we will come to know today the story of this particular hero and why he should be your hero. Okay, so Prabhupada was actually born in Calcutta. So on September 1st, the day after Janmashtami or Krishna Jayanti, we say. So his parents' name was Gaur Mohan De and Rajni. So Gaur Mohan De, this father of Srila Prabhupada, he was a cloth merchant. So they were not very rich people. They were like sort of like middle class. Like apparently Prabhupada was telling that how his father used to earn only 300 rupees. But then he used to take care of his family so well. And Prabhupada said, I've never felt that I missed out anything in life. My father would provide me everything. Everybody was satisfied. Prabhupada said, I led a very happy, joyful, and very satisfied childhood. So they were a very simple Vaishnav family, very, very pious people. And Prabhupada, when he was born, they named him Abhay Charan. Abhay Charan means somebody who is fearless. And why is he fearless? Because he has taken shelter of Krishna. So Prabhupada, when he was very young, so they have this astrology chart, right? So it seems the astrologer told that, at the age of 70, this man will cross ocean and he will establish 108 Krishna temples. And when his parents heard this, they were all laughing, because in those times, even now, I remember when I went to UK, my parents were not at all okay. My relatives were not okay. Oh, no, 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 we should not send a child, girl or male or female, not sent across the ocean. They say that, even now it happens. So imagine in 1800s, where people were like, it was unheard of people traveling, across the border. And like Prabhupada's family was very, very a simple family. They were not like I said, they were not a rich family. And then it said that how his mother was very strict and father was very lenient. So apparently Prabhupada used to have two teachers. One was, even that time they had tuition teacher. So Prabhupada used to have a tuition teacher, and his mother wanted him to become this aristocrat or a lawyer, or like every Indian household, you be either engineer, lawyer, doctor, something like that. In those days, it was more of lawyer. So Prabhupada's mother wanted him to be that. But his father, he was very, very devotional. So he wanted him to only serve Radha Krishna. So at Prabhupada's house, they used to have this beautiful Radha Krishna deities. And near Prabhupada's house, there was a Radha Govind temple also. So pretty much his childhood was between seeing his father very wonderfully worshipping his home deities, Radha Krishna, and also every evening he used to go to the Radha Govind temple near his house. So his father, what he used to do is, he used to keep giving him, like, he bought his mridanga. Prabhupada's father, him gave one small Radha Krishna deities to Srila Prabhupada. And then, his mother would be very upset. Like, why are you giving our son, mridanga, and teaching him all this spiritual thing that will not earn him money later on? He should be a lawyer, he should be this and that. And Prabhupada's father brought a mridanga teacher. So Prabhupada used to have two classes every day. One was tuition teacher teaching him ABC, and other was mridanga teacher. Mridanga is like an instrument. And that's how Prabhupada grew up. And then when Prabhupada was very young, Prabhupada used to, like children, they imitate their parents. So Prabhupada used to see that how his father was so dedicated in worshipping, how clean, how his mindset was. Prabhupada said that he has never had his father yelling at him. There was never a fight in his household. So that's the kind of upbringing that Prabhupada had. And what's amazing was that Prabhupada, seeing that how his father was worshipping, so Prabhupada asked to his father, even I want to worship. So like I said, his father gave him Radha Krishna deities. And then Prabhupada used to hear these stories about Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. So this particular deity form, some of you may not know. So these are Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra. So Subhadra is Krishna's sister, Balaram is Krishna's brother. They have taken this unique form, which you can see in Puri, which is in Orissa, this particular deity form. So in Tamil, they will say Ter Ilkaradu. So this particular, every year, this deity of Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra will come in a cart. A huge cart where thousands of devotees will pull the cart. So once in a year, the deities will come out of the temple and give darshan to one and all. So this particular Jagannath, Ratha Yatra, they call it as Ratha Yatra, was very, very dear to Prabhupada. It is said that Prabhupada used to be so eager to go to Jagannath Puri. But then, he was young, he can't go alone. So what he used to do is he will go to the train station nearby, and he used to ask the train master, ticket master, or the railway master. He'll ask them, what is the train, when does it go to Jagannath Puri? And then he'll say, how much is the ticket, he'll ask. And then he'll look at his, small piggy bank, and he'll say that he does not have that much money. He'll be so upset, and he'll come back home. And then seeing his restlessness and that he is upset, his his father asks him, things, okay, I'll go and we will have a mini Rath Yatra at our house. So on the way, so they go to this marketplace where they have this carpenter who could make this, like you see in the picture right here. So like this Rath cart. So they went and inquired because Prabhupada was, as Abhay Charan, as Prabhupada was very young, he was very, very upset. So then when they went to that marketplace and the carpenter gave a quotation and it was so expensive and Prabhupada's father couldn't afford and Prabhupada became even more upset. On the way back, Prabhupada was sulking like children, when they don't get what they want. And then this old lady saw and she was like, oh, why Abhay is so sad today? And then Prabhupada's father told. And then she said, oh, I have this old mini cart. So I will give you. So Prabhupada got that. They had Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra deities. And Prabhupada did Ratha cart, that particular road, I told you, from the Radha Govind temple to his house. Every day for 8 days. 8 days, Prabhupada did diligently all the puja, all the worship. He assigned, he had obviously group of friends and all, neighbors came to see the witness this particular, they all found it very cute and funny. But Prabhupada is very serious, 6 years old boy is very serious. What he was doing is he would tell his friends, hey, you do this, okay, you clean this, oh, you get flowers, you do this. And then he would tell the elders, this is your job, this is your job, this is your job, at this time this should happen. So at very young age, he had this amazing leadership quality where he would assign services to different people. And he didn't take it as pretty like a child, they'll do one day because they're all excited. No, Prabhupada did for 8 continuous days. So that's how amazing Prabhupada was. Now, so then what happened was Prabhupada went to college in a college named as Scottish Churches College. So he did a degree in pharmacy and or chemical engineering, some chemical pharmacy, something related to that he did. And then after that, in the third year of his college, around 1918, he married. But then since Prabhupada didn't have a job, the girl was in separate place and Prabhupada was still living in his house. And then what happened, Prabhupada, that time, this freedom, Indian freedom movement was going on and Prabhupada was very, very interested and he joined, his senior was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So imagine, so it was like high, high energy, high octane, people were all into it. And Prabhupada was also into that. And Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and at that point of time, if we all would know in our history books where people would say that, reject everything foreign, we wear only khadi, that particular mood. And then Subhash Chandra Bose wanted people to join the movement. So Prabhupada discontinued his education and he joined the freedom movement, because of which he had no graduate degree. And then he had obviously no degree, no job in that time, obviously. But then, later through his family friend, he did get a job at a pharmaceutical company, sort of a laboratory, sort of a pharmaceutical company. Anyway, this was going on. And then in 1922, so there was this friend of Prabhupada. He was very, very close friend of Prabhupada. He told that there is this one particular very scholarly sannyasi. I want you to meet him. I find him very fascinating. You should meet him. You will like him. Prabhupada was not, he's very pious and all, but Prabhupada was not interested, or he was very hesitant about this sannyasi and saffron people. Because when he was very young, Prabhupada's father was a very simple-hearted man. So anybody wearing saffron, any devotional person, everybody he would bring home. Some of them would obviously be like, fake, or this fake Babajis and gurus. Some of them would be fraud people. So Prabhupada has seen all of it since childhood. So he was like, no, I don't want. But, because his friend kept insisting, then Prabhupada said, okay, I'll come. And then what happened was Prabhupada and his friend entered the room and they paid obeisances. They, when you're elder, now you touch the elder's feet, sort of like that. So they paid obeisances. And the Prabhupada got up, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who you see in the pictures here, here. So this is Prabhupada. This is Prabhupada. So when the moment Prabhupada got up, that time he was Abhay Charan, he got up, the first thing his spiritual master said was that you seem very intelligent. You should preach this Vedic philosophy in English. So Prabhupada found it very amusing. He was like that's the first time he met. He's just about to look up to this person, like look up, and since like he just paid like obeisances, his respects, and he's just looking up, and then the first thing this person, this saffron person, is uttering is that you are very intelligent, you look educated, why don't you preach this message of Krishna all over the world, especially in English? And Prabhupada observed, he was like, okay, sort of a thing. And then Prabhupada saw Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was very scholarly. He looked very like this brilliant people. Now, sometimes when you meet brilliant people, the whole vibe around them, the way they speak, the way they sit, the way they carry themselves, you'll know. And Prabhupada sat there for some time, and Prabhupada told him, like, right now freedom movement is going on, India's freedom is more important, something like that he was talking. And then um, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that this is also urgent, in fact even more urgent. Prabhupada didn't understand that at that point of time the heaviness or the trueness of his spiritual master Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But anyway, that impression which his spiritual master gave him was very nice impression. And then Prabhupada, left the place. And then later what happened was then Prabhupada came back, because that, like I said, that impression was so powerful that Prabhupada came back. And then later he accepted initiation from his spiritual master. And then after accepting initiation, then Prabhupada had to move to another place, Allahabad. And then he started having his own business. And then, but his heart of heart, he kept thinking about what his spiritual master said. And then Prabhupada moved back. He was living close to the temple, every day visiting and having nice association. And again, he had to travel to another place for his business reasons. And even though he was living with his wife and children, Prabhupada used to regularly donate to his spiritual master. And what happened is, help his spiritual master in whatever way he can. But then Prabhupada had this iffiness. He is like, something is not, I don't feel complete in one sense. So he wrote to his spiritual master that I want direct instruction. I want to know how directly now, like, nicely please you, my guru. So he wrote this letter, and this letter came to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada opened. So his spiritual master replied, and Prabhupada opened the letter 2 days after his, I think 2 days or 2 weeks, his spiritual master passed away. So the letter was there, but he didn't realize that this letter has arrived. So imagine how Prabhupada must have felt. He is this so desperately, although he was having a business, he was having this family, he really wanted to please his spiritual master, his guru. But then he wrote this very beautiful letter. That letter is amazing. If maybe one day we'll all read together. And here, Prabhupada got the reply from his spiritual master 2 weeks after his spiritual master passed away. And it obviously shook him. And in the letter, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's Prabhupada's guru, said the same exact thing. You are educated, you speak English well, go to the West and you preach. Now this time Prabhupada took it seriously. So that became his life's goal and mission. And then what happened? And then again, he started many such, he was working with the Gaudiya Math. Gaudiya Math is ISKCON's parent organization. So Gaudiya Math, so he used to help at the Gaudiya Math temple, and he would print magazines. So every day he would fund himself. Nobody would give him money. So every day he used to go to Delhi he would find the printer, fund his printing, edit the magazine, write the magazine, all on his own. That one day he will go, night he will reach there, morning he will finish the business, then again come back. So every week he used to do this. So when Prabhupada was doing this, that point of time, like I said, na, freedom movement was going on. And then the government had banned, um, usage of paper was very, very expensive, literally very, very expensive. And then what happened was, this was around 1944 when the Second World War was happening. Then Prabhupada directly wrote to the government and said that this is very important. This will help the morale of our country. So you please issue paper to me. What I am doing is very important. So please help issue paper to me. So first time he sent the letter, they rejected. Second time he sent the letter, they rejected. The third attempt became successful. So you see how Prabhupada was very, very brave. So imagine when the government, Second World War, there was shortage of paper, people would,
నాకే ఉంటది ఎప్పుడు.
I think somebody's okay. People would feel very dejected. Oh my God, no, no, no. But here, Prabhupada, you see that he was not scared. He never sort of felt, oh my God, that's it. I can't do anymore. He was not sitting and whining about his life, complaining, oh, I'm doing so much. Why this is not happening? Why that is not happening?
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Was there a problem?
Yeah, you had muted yourself. So
Okay. Okay. So Prabhupada would never sort of like complain. He was always he had a very solution based approach. Okay, now this is the problem. Now, how do I get over this? So he would always be very brave. He was always a very go-getter. So nothing sort of affected him. He was undisturbed by whatever obstacles that was thrown at him. And you will see that from childhood till he left this world, he was like that. Anyway, then afterwards his children grew up, and then his children became took over his business, and then he retired, and then he took something called vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is, so you see, it is like brahmachari is a celibate. Then comes is grahastha means married. This is different types of ashram. And then comes vanaprastha, when vanaprastha is sort of retirement age where they focus more on the spiritual aspect of their life. And then comes sannyas. So Prabhupada took vanaprastha where retired his family life. Okay, and in 1950 he did that, and then he moved to Vrindavan. He moved to Vrindavan and he stayed at this beautiful place called Radha Damodar Temple. So if we all go to Vrindavan, one temple that you must visit is Radha Damodar Temple. It's one of the most important temples in Vrindavan. So then Prabhupada got sannyas. Yeah. Then Prabhupada got sannyas. So then at this particular Radha Damodar temple, this is Prabhupada temple is there. Adjacent to the temple, the altar, there is one particular room. So that is where Prabhupada is staying. That room is still maintained even till today. So if you go to Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, you can see that room exactly as it is when Prabhupada used in 1959, that time. So then Prabhupada at this temple, he wrote this literature. He started writing his literature, his books, writing Srimad Bhagavatam. So every day he used to sit, do his seva, and only focused, one pointed single focus on his mission. Why? Because his spiritual master told to take this Vedic culture, this philosophy to the West. So in English, so everything he had to make it accessible to the West. So Prabhupada was doing that. And then Prabhupada finished his manuscript, the entire manuscript he compiled. And then he did this particular at that point of time, he did finished one book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. And then he finished some few small books also. And then he was slowly writing the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there is this beautiful pastime talking about how Prabhupada was at that point of his life. So what happened was, there is this pujari who lived adjacent to Radha Damodar temple. So later, many years after Prabhupada left his body or passed away, devotees took interview of him. So his name is one Babaji. So then he recounted that how Prabhupada was so focused about his seva, that he said that never he has seen in 78 years being a pujari at the temple, he has never ever seen somebody whose devotional service throughout the day, or devotional attitude, service, or a sadhana means you're chanting, you're reading, you're hearing, all your services. So that all that never seen somebody who did that sadhana or devotional practices with perfection, just like Prabhupada. So that point of time, Vrindavan was not very posh. Now it is like super roads and everything. That time, the temple was not greatly constructed. The roads, there was no facility much. It was woody. There was no like fan, heater. All that was not happening. There was no electricity also. So nothing was there. It was an austere condition. But Prabhupada again never complained, and he was so focused. And this particular Babaji tells that, days he would hear Prabhupada crying and crying and crying. And what he is crying, from his room, he can see the samadhis of great acharyas. And acharyas, he would look at them and he would just cry, 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 begging him that I don't know how I'm going to do it. He knows he has to do it. He does not know how he is going to do it. He's a sannyasi. He's not having any some $10,000 or 1 crore rupees in his bank account, nor does he have any disciples who is willing to give him donation after donation, nor does he perform any magic like taking gold from or making from powder to silver. He's not doing any of those magic tricks either. So in what ways Prabhupada will get money? How will he go to the West? What will he do? He does not know. But he knew one thing, that if Krishna is there, if the acharyas, if great personalities bless, then it is possible. So Prabhupada, as a leader, he saw his incapability, that I am incapable on my own. Sometimes in our life, we become very proud that we cleared one exam. Yeah, I am amazing, I am brilliant, I am better than anybody else. Prabhupada did that. Prabhupada did miraculous things, but Prabhupada never took credit for himself. Prabhupada always gave credit to his disciples. Prabhupada always gave credit to his spiritual master, to Krishna and to acharyas. That is the mark of a great person. That humility that Prabhupada had, that he never saw himself great. When we have that attitude, you will see blessings will flow. When we have too much of ego and pride, that I am so great, I am so good, I am very confident in this, and then we'll see when you're overconfident, especially, then we'll see that we'll attract only problems, we'll attract curses, like Ravan. Like I'm saying now, I was reading Ramayan. So Ravan, what happened was that he was so thirsty for fighting. He liked to fight. He knew he would win. So he would go about, he was so pride, he was so envious, he was so jealous. He had all these overconfidence. He was always feeling superior to the other person. He would go to the heavenly planets and wage a war, because he's like, who these people, these Indra and all of them, I can win over them. So he would feel very superior because of his powers, because of his abilities, and he would treat them as not appropriately. So like that, what happened, he would see the bhuloka and he'll be like, what these humans, what they can do to me. But then because of his envious nature, because of his superiority complex, he would go and he would fight and kill people like chumma, for no reason. And what he would do throughout that particular journey, he would only incur curses from person after person. But a person who is humble, who understands that I am not the controller. Krishna is the controller. I am just an instrument. I am just a postman. This is just my duty. Somebody who thinks like that, they attract blessings. And Prabhupada, because of his attitude, he always attracted blessings. So for days and days and night, Prabhupada used to simply do his seva with utmost sincerity. And at night, he would keep crying to the acharyas, I am not capable. You are capable. So please help me. So please help me. So this happened. And then what happened? So this devotee was telling that how Prabhupada's attitude was. And then afterwards, Prabhupada published 3 volumes, was ready. The book was ready. There was this one particular person, her name was Morarji. She had this ship company. So she used to help Prabhupada in printing. And then Prabhupada was like, okay, now it's time. So now at this point of time, Prabhupada was 69 years old. You know, my father is around something around 62 or something. He's like, he's retired, happy. So imagine now I look at my father, I talk to him every day. He looks so frail, he looks old. Suddenly I can see that age in my father. And Prabhupada was 69 at the time when people like relax and enjoy their life. And Prabhupada was at a dreamland. He is a devotee. For a devotee, where there is, I mean, there is no better place than Vrindavan. There is no better place than serving at Radha Damodar. He could sat at Vrindavan, the best place in the universe, such a beautiful place for any sannyasi. You know, any person who's interested in God consciousness, they will love Vrindavan. Even if you go today, you will love Vrindavan like anything. It will never leave your heart. So for Prabhupada to leave that beautiful, what do you say, like, you know, something to give up, something that is so precious, that is so wonderful, nobody would like to give up. Imagine you have access to a beautiful mansion like house, so many servants and beautiful, you can fly anywhere you want to, take vacations whenever you want to, such kind of a lifestyle. Imagine, nobody wants to give it up, isn't it? So for Prabhupada, this was his dreamland, a dream, that dream come true. But Prabhupada gave it up. You know, what is very fascinating for me is that Prabhupada could have sat in, you know, you would have heard lot of gurus, lot of great people and all of that, you know, just trying to, obviously I will compare because like they all made disciples here, like, and then they went to the West. But Prabhupada did ulta. He went to the West with literally nothing. He had no rich disciples to take care of him, nothing. So we'll see what happened. So then Prabhupada went to this particular, so her name is Morarji, Mrs. Morarji. So he went to her. She was the owner of this steam ship company basically. So basically they do like cargo ships, na? So that is the thing. So she told, Prabhupada told her that, you know, this is my plan. I want to go to the US. So Prabhupada asked her, you please give me the ticket. Okay. And then Mrs. Morarji was like, what, Swamiji, you're old. You should stay in Vrindavan, write books, and you make disciples here. You know, in old life, mein, why you're going there and suffering? You will not even survive going there. But Prabhupada, as usual, like I said, he never gives up. So every day he used to go meet her, constantly trying to convince her. And then Prabhupada was like, she told that Prabhupada, if I give you a ticket and you will die on the way, then that all that papam will go on me. She was like so confident that Prabhupada will not be able to manage or handle all alone, because Prabhupada didn't have any disciples. I mean, he didn't have any disciples. He did not have any money. He did not know any influential people who could help him. Nothing. So Prabhupada again asked her. Then she said, okay, there is one cargo ship going to New York. I can give you one ticket. And then he was very, very happy. So Prabhupada packed his trunk. So this is not, see, Prabhupada had no idea much about the West. So this I am talking about in 1960s. 1960, there was no internet. where you can Google and search best hotel, best restaurant, people I can stay with, Oyo or Airbnb. It was not there. Prabhupada had no idea about the West. He lived in a very um, uh, protected life. So for Prabhupada to take that decision at the age of 69, when he could have aram se, when he could have relaxed, be in his Vrindavan, how brave. I remember when I was going to, you go to a new place, some of you are working, traveling to a new place, how scary it can be. Oh, what about friends? What about how will I settle? Where will I stay? Accommodation, food, job, colleagues, so much we think, na? So much scares us. But see how Prabhupada was. He don't knew nobody in America. He didn't have money. He had no idea what he was going to do there. But he knew one thing, that my spiritual master has told, and I have to fulfill his desire. That one life, that was his purpose in life. So then Prabhupada left in the ship called Jaladuta. So Jaladuta was not like this cruise ship. So on August 13, 1965, Jaladuta started. So it was a cargo ship. Have you seen cargo train even now? It looks so ugly. It looks so dusty. It looks so unkept. But at least other first class trains, something decent will be there. So imagine 1960 cargo ship is not going to be with so much great facilities. Nothing. So Prabhupada was in a cargo ship. And it is mentioned. So 38 days Prabhupada traveled in that ship. 38 days. In those 2 days. So imagine there was no like big kitchen. And in kitchen, obviously, they would cook non-vegetarian. So Prabhupada was a vegetarian and he would not even eat onion garlic. So Prabhupada used to just boil some potatoes, very, very simple food he will eat. Because there is nothing, some little bit bread. He had taken some cereal sort of a thing, and that is a milk. That is all very, very simple and very humble food. There was a time when Prabhupada became very sick. He had 2 heart attacks. 2 heart attacks he had. All alone, this old man was surviving. For whom? For what? For what? Imagine he wouldn't have thought that, all this is gone, so many people, today we'll be sitting and talking about him. Obviously, Prabhupada didn't know all that. For whom he was doing, what he was doing, I don't know. He was that is called brave, that is called selfless. Prabhupada was very selfless. Prabhupada never thought what would have happened to him. So Prabhupada wrote diaries during his stay, during his initial time, right? During in this Jaladuta ship, and then later during his early time in US. Prabhupada write diary, and Prabhupada used to tell that I have no idea why I have come here. Krishna, you have sent me here, so you have to help me. So anyway, so what happened was Prabhupada was tolerating all of it. Prabhupada thought he is going to die. Prabhupada thought that, he wouldn't live. Then one day he said that he had a dream. One day he had a dream that all the avatars, the Dasavatar, were helping. Oh, that I forgot to mention. There was a huge sea storm happening, and the seas were very rough. And it was very difficult for Prabhupada to continue. He was sick. Nobody was taking care of him. There was no like cruise ship, you will have some first aid person or a doctor or a nurse. Nobody was there. Prabhupada was chest pain, heart attacks. He was in his room struggling alone. And in this dream, he saw all of them sort of traveling, helping him cross this ocean. So Prabhupada's dream, and he felt better that Krishna is leading this particular Jaladuta or this particular ship. So anyway, then Prabhupada lands. He lands in Boston. So Boston is the place where I am staying. So every year, the date, which is around September 17th, Prabhupada landed here. So that was the 37th day from his ship journey. 37th day, Prabhupada landed in Boston. So that is the first port of entry to US is Boston. So every year we go on September 17th, we go that particular place where Prabhupada's Jaladuta, you know, reach the shore, and that particular place we'll do aarti and we will do like big kirtan and all. So it's beautiful experience. So just going to that place, that particular shore now where Prabhupada had landed, you know, it just gives me a lot of goosebumps personally. So then anyway, so Prabhupada landed there. Then afterwards, the place, the ship, the final destination was New York. So 38th day, Prabhupada reached New York. So Prabhupada in Boston, he actually writes this, one of my favorite poems. Prabhupada was such a beautiful poet also, talent. We were talking about talent now, super talented he was. This beautiful poet, he writes this poem called Markandeya Bhagavata. So there he writes a verse, beautiful verse. Oh Krishna, I don't know what, why you have brought me here, but I guess you have some business for me here. Otherwise, why would you bring to me to this terrible place? So as I remember in 1960s, obviously it would have just been like buildings and buildings. So because I live in Boston, I see that place. Literally, it is only that. It's only like tall buildings. It is not like, imagine from a beautiful place like Vrindavan where parrots are like chirping. There is peacocks. There is like beautiful smell, aroma always. Kirtan going on, bells, and from that place he's come to this sort of hellish place. Even I felt the same thing, although I've been in other countries in my life. When I came here, I understood what Prabhupada would have felt like, because it was just all the buildings were like gray, brown, so much pollution, cars, noise. You know, so Prabhupada felt that way. Next, then he had this one particular person. His name was one person called Agarwal. So this particular Agarwal had sponsored Prabhupada's visa. So Prabhupada went there as a tourist visa. Okay, so Prabhupada went there. So tourist visa at that point of time only was like around 3 months. And then Prabhupada had only 40 rupees in his trunk, in his suitcase. And he had a typewriter and he had Bhagavatam books and one umbrella and two cloth. One he was wearing and another one spare one. That is all Prabhupada had, literally. And that time nobody told him that 40 rupees, you can't change the currency when you reach US. You have to change in India. Nobody told him. So that 40 rupees was not usable at all there. So he literally was penniless. He had zero money when he landed US, when he landed New York. But then Prabhupada, being very smart, he told the captain of his ship, he told them, like, I don't have money. I can't like do the currency exchange. I have Bhagavatam set. Would you like to buy? And that captain said, oh, why not? How much is it? $20. So Prabhupada, did the first book distribution, $20, and with $20, he entered US. So this particular Mr. Agarwal, his son was living in Pennsylvania. So they sponsored Prabhupada's visa. Like tourist visa means somebody has to tell, now this person is coming to my house. So Prabhupada was staying at this person's house. So this person, the son was Indian, and the wife, Sally Agarwal, she was a American. So imagine Prabhupada landed and they didn't, there's a small apartment with two children. And all they had placed was a couch. Now Prabhupada can't stay there. So they found this place called YMCA. YMCA is sort of like a gym. Interestingly, a YMCA is opposite to my house. When I was preparing for this class, everything became like, wow, very personal to me somehow. So Prabhupada was staying in a gym. There was one small room Prabhupada was staying. So morning he used to come, like walk few kilometer, stay at their house, go back afternoon. So he would prepare his own food morning, and then he'll go back, come back, prepare lunch, then go back, come back, prepare his dinner. So like this, it was happening. And Sally Agarwal, who that lady who was there, is like, she would smoke. So it is mentioned that Prabhupada, like he would open the kitchen, I'm saying, open the fridge, and there would be like this smell of fish and meat, and like room is filled with smoke. Everything was like not clean. So Prabhupada had to tolerate. Imagine for a sannyasi to live like that. So Prabhupada didn't say anything, and Prabhupada was never again complained. He never shrunk his face like, you, ooh, nothing he did. He was like, it's okay. It's okay. And the Sally Agarwal had that much of courtesy that in front of Prabhupada, she would not smoke. So that much she would do. And she would tell that how Prabhupada used to be at their house. Prabhupada is very personal. In fact, he used to keep playing with their sons and daughters. So she was a Christian, like staunch Christian. And every Sunday she used to go with her daughter to the church. And obviously in Sunday school, there's something called Sunday school where they teach Bible to children. So apparently her daughter her name was Maya or something like that. Sorry. So she was reading about Jesus. So she came home, she saw Prabhupada, this beautiful, she was Prabhupada very short also, like beautiful, aristocratic person, very effulgent, like very bright. It was like glowing. And Prabhupada was carried the sense of like vibe, that charisma. This little girl saw him like Swami Jesus, Swami Jesus. So Prabhupada used to be so lovely and friendly to them. Again, never complained for whatever they did for them. Prabhupada used to tolerate everything. Like his own, you know, just a minute. Yeah. His stuff would be there, prasadam he would have had. Next to that, there would be like meat. Next to that, there will be. So it was like all over the place. Like she mentioned that how Prabhupada found everything very fascinating. He found how, fridge, frozen food, what vacuum is, everything was so, what washing machine was, everything was so fascinating for Prabhupada. I can go on for all of this, but, we are nearing our end. But so Prabhupada was very, very pleasant to be always around. He was never judgmental of anybody. So Sally Agarwal tells not once Prabhupada to tell, oh, why are you worshipping Jesus? You should worship Krishna. Never. Prabhupada is always respectful, always humble, always sweet, always courteous, always respectful. Then Prabhupada was all alone he landed in New York. He had nobody. He can stay at Sally Agarwal's house for 1 month. Then he knew one person called Dr. Mishra. He was sort of like one guru person. So he went there, stayed for some time. And and then he met few people. And then Prabhupada moved to this place called a Bauri. Bauri is sort of like, I don't know. I don't know a place in India which sort of represents this place called Bauri. So Bauri is the place where literally all the crackheads live. So you will find alcoholics, homeless people, people who are high on drugs. It's unclean. You go there, you will feel so unsafe. Like I went December 2019, I went to New York. So still now you go there, I'm like, I was shivering. I was so scared. Nothing should happen to me. Gauranga, Gauranga. So I was like literally like praying because that is how scary it is. Anything can happen any point of time. That's how it is. So imagine for Prabhupada, when he was living along with this boy. And this boy was to help Prabhupada. But then he was very, what do I say, not stable. So he would, like, Prabhupada used to cook for him, like do everything, go out, distribute. He had some magazine, printed Back to Godhead magazines, which he had written, like I told, now remember. So he would sell, get some money, and he would sort of survive on that. Like it is mentioned, once he went to supermarket and he got a lot of things, and Prabhupada had only $10, but the amount came to $30, and Prabhupada sort of charmed the the cashier put in money for him. so so Prabhupada was like that. Prabhupada was not rich, he didn't have anything, he was all alone. Sometimes when you're alone, right, we feel very lonely, we feel desperate, we struggle, our mental health deteriorates. Imagine just surviving all alone in a place where you have no idea how to survive, no idea how to live, no facility, you don't know any friend, you don't know anybody, you have no idea how to go about in your life every single day. But Prabhupada never gave up. He had one huge he had a typewriter. Interesting, the typewriter's name was Corona. I was telling you, it's all very fascinating this entire time when I was preparing for this class. So, that typewriter also, somebody stole his typewriter. So that was his only thing he could do. He came here to distribute this Vedic literature, and he needed a typewriter. And typewriter those days were very expensive. Like $500 means, like in now it will be some $1,500, which is more than like a lakh. Yeah, more than a lakh. So imagine, it was already gifted by somebody. Now, where will Prabhupada go? What will he do? Prabhupada again never gave up. You see that so many obstacles came, but Prabhupada never ever gave up. And then slowly people started coming. And then what happened was, um, there was some so that time in the culture in US was something called the hippie culture. So people were like, in America all facilities were there, riches were there, opportunities were there, job was there, everything was there, but people were like, this is not the end goal, something is missing. So the youth of the country were turning into like there's something alternate, there must be something. They were all in the process of searching truth, but what they did was they started taking drugs because their reality apparently to them it sucks. So what they would do is they would leave houses, go in search of truth, like something that will fulfill them. So they would do that. So the culture in Bauri and in that particular time when Prabhupada went, or the area where he was staying, was filled with these kind of people only, who would leave home, who would not like have a job, or who would be into like rock music, who would be into everything useless, basically, like alcohol. They would have no money, they would sleep with one girl one day, another girl another day, jump from one person to another, high on sex, high on drugs, high on alcohol, everything you name it, it was filled with that in this particular all around US. But this was the hotspot. New York was sort of the hotspot where people all over the world would come in. But there were some sane people also. So some sane people would come to Prabhupada's place, and they said that we'll move to this particular Bauri where you're staying is not good. We'll move to the second avenue, which is close by. We'll stay there. And they bought this particular small shop. And Prabhupada started inviting people. So people would come. If you see videos now, people, all these drug addicts, all people high on cocaine or marijuana, they will come and they will sit there and they will sort of zone out. And Prabhupada used to sit and cook. Nobody knew anything. All these sincere students who came for Prabhupada's classes would not know anything about what Prabhupada's teaching, but they were so attracted to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was an amazing cook. So for just for the food, they all came. And in fact, Prabhupada is so sweet that he will keep one box of sweets like gulab jamun or like a milk sweet every time outside this shop. So as passerby goes by, they'll pick up the sweet and they will walk away. So he was distributing love, he was distributing prasadam. So slowly people started coming, people started donating small money, many volunteers started coming. You had people who became very interested and they wanted to know what it is that Prabhupada is teaching. So Prabhupada, he knew, he had this expansive vocabulary, he was an amazing speaker, but then Prabhupada had this thick Bengali accent. So these American students, most of them didn't understand, but they knew that Prabhupada is a very serious person and he's talking something serious. So like this, people started coming up, and Prabhupada started printing, was able to print books. And then they had this huge mantra rock festival where they invited some rock musicians, and Prabhupada was using this drum kind of a thing. And then it became a huge massive hit. And then people started coming in. Prabhupada went to a park nearby, just sat there for hours and hours with just it is this bongo drum. He was chanting. People were very curious to see this unique looking man in orange color sitting and chanting something, and all these white men were jumping up and down, and everybody started coming in and seeing, and that became a huge news, and everybody started like noticing the ISKCON community. But then what happened is all these young people started joining ISKCON, and that time the cult was there. Cult means these fake people, fraud people. So government used to have this deprogramming thing. Devotees used to get arrested, and people, these so-called deprogrammers of the cult, used to arrest them, torture them, give them, lock them in their house. Prabhupada used to get so pained and upset, and he used to cry. And then Prabhupada fought in court and they won. And Prabhupada was like, we have to establish ISKCON as a legitimate movement, otherwise people will not take us seriously. Then ISKCON was formed. Then one day, there's one devotee, her name is Malati Mataji. She saw in one store, she saw this beautiful looking doll. She brought to Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada, I saw this beautiful looking doll. And it happened to be Jagannath. Immediately, Prabhupada paid obeisances to Jagannath. And this lady was thinking, ayo, why he is paying respects and obeisances to a doll? So she was very confused. And then he says, this is Jagannath. Jagannath has come to our place. So you see, somebody who's so sincere, who's not looking for fame, who's just doing his devotion, name, fame, Krishna himself comes to his house. So Jagannath, who's none other than Krishna himself, came to Srila Prabhupada. And then he told to his disciple, who Malati Mataji, you bring, it's a set, 2 more people will be there, you go bring. So then it was installed. So Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra was installed. This is the Rath cart. And soon in 1960, in the next year, they had this Rath Yatra festival. So Prabhupada asked his devotees, does anybody know carpenting? Then somebody told, yeah, sculpting. Somebody raised. And he was like, okay, you please set. And then Prabhupada told them how the design should be. You should build like a Rath cart. Like I said, that time there was no concept of internet. So Prabhupada had to literally teach them everything, including building a Rath cart. This is the Rath Yatra cart. So he had to teach them to the T. Like every single thing had to be taught. And Prabhupada was, and this huge festival came, people were pulling Rath, and Prabhupada was, it was a huge success. If you see in Jagannath Puri, Westerners are not allowed, foreign people are not allowed. And you see how Prabhupada was amazing, that he was like, oh, Jagannath, my disciples. It is mentioned later that later when he had a lot of disciples and he went to India, they were not given permission to enter the Jagannath Puri temple because they were foreigners. And Prabhupada, although he was in Jagannath Puri, he never visited the temple. Instead, what did he do? He brought Jagannath all over the world, where irrespective of your caste, creed, your social class, where you come from, whether you are an American, whether you are a Russian, everybody can meet Jagannath. That is how amazing Prabhupada was. And then he met the Beatles, who were like a popular band. I don't know who's the popular boy band. Imagine Justin Bieber. That's the only person I can think of. Justin Bieber, somebody that he had a boy band. So that is how famous they were. They were like this, people would just die for them, literally how this particular person, Beatles, was. So he met Prabhupada, and then he was very inspired. He helped Prabhupada in distributing the books. And then Prabhupada went on to build ISKCON to what it is. This was when Prabhupada was leaving his body. So Prabhupada, when he realized it was time to leave this world, he was like, I want to leave the world in Vrindavan. So all these disciples of Prabhupada, when they came in contact with Prabhupada, they had no idea who Krishna was. They had no idea what Bhagavad Gita was. They knew one person. That person was Srila Prabhupada. So their entire life they dedicated in serving Srila Prabhupada. And when this person was leaving, nobody could take it. In Vrindavan, that final video, it's so difficult to watch that video. Even Prabhupada, if you see, at the end, he was just leaving. He was going away from this world. Still, he had this dictaphone, which he uses for his, as an instruction to his disciples in the future. So he was telling to his disciples that never think I am the body. I am always with you through my books. I have never left you. So he was preaching what he was following, what he preaches. Prabhupada teaches all of us in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is teaching that you are not this body in 2nd chapter. Now Prabhupada is showing that by example. No, I am not dying. This is just the body. A spiritual master will always remain as Vani as sound, in his instructions always and forever. Now, you all mentioned a lot of qualities. I know it's getting late. I will try to summarize a little bit. So you all mentioned qualities, like you mentioned qualities like brave. So Prabhupada was brave. No matter what happened, there were so many obstacles. This entire Prabhupada's pastimes to talk about in 45 minutes or 1 hour is so difficult. So it is there. There's so many books. There is a website called vedabase.io where you can read about Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was exemplary. Prabhupada was amazing. He had, although he came from India, his vocabulary or usage of language, in especially in English, was brilliant. His female disciples were, when they came to India, they didn't know many things about living in India. Conditions were austere. Conditions were not favorable. But Prabhupada, whatever donations he would get, he would make sure that all his female disciples, they didn't know what sari was, right? They were just wearing some cloth around, basically that like they'll say na, like you'll go and buy blouse, right? They will have this long bit piece, like big piece. So pretty much they would buy like some 6-7 meters, and that is what they would wrap around, tie as sari. They didn't have like proper sari. So Prabhupada, when he went to India, or he goes to somebody, he would ask people to buy saris, and he would gift saris to his female disciples. That is how caring and personal Prabhupada was. One time, one disciple, his foot got hurt, and then there were so many hundreds and hundreds of people was with Prabhupada, waiting for even one moment attention to Prabhupada. They were sort of glued to Prabhupada. Imagine 100 people around you where they are all like worshipping you. Prabhupada noticed this devotee that his foot was not uh, in proper condition, and Prabhupada was like, oh, what happened? Can I do something to you? And Prabhupada got first aid, helped him, and said, if there's anything, you please come to me. So even if we had 100 people, 1,000 people, Prabhupada was very personal. Prabhupada was not fake. He followed whatever he preached. He told whatever he advised others, he would do. Even like there is one pastime where he was in Kumbh Mela. So Prabhupada was in Kumbh that particular time because he was his health condition was bad. He was bad health condition. So Prabhupada was in Kumbh. So Kumbh, that time it was like really cold, and devotees were they were living in a tent. So there was no heaters and this big bungalow where they can stay. So devotees could not get up in the morning, and the water was freezing cold. But Prabhupada, these are all brahmacharis. So Prabhupada was like, yes, it is austere conditions, but service must go on. We must all get up and do our sadhana. So Prabhupada, although he was very sick, just to teach by example, he got up in the morning in front of everybody. He wore his towel, and he, freezing cold water, he took shower, and he was ready to do the morning aarti. So that was how Prabhupada was. So there is this time, like, people didn't know initiation. People didn't know what guru was. People didn't know what yajna was. They knew nothing. All these Western people, they had no clue of anything. It is once mentioned that Prabhupada had these two disciples. They were boyfriend, girlfriend. Prabhupada was like, you should get married. So Prabhupada conducted their marriage ceremony. So you see that yajna, na, if you all, you all see in yajna, they will put some banana in the fire. Na? So Prabhupada gave them bananas, and they told, put the banana in the fire, into the oblations. Prabhupada used that word. So these people didn't understand because there was so much noise, there was so much smoke, and kids were running around. Maybe they didn't hear much. So they saw the banana and they started opening and they were about to eat. Prabhupada was like, no, that's not for you to eat. That is for you to throw in the fire. They were so confused. Everything was so unique and so amusing to them. But like I'm saying, Prabhupada had to teach them from beginning, where they didn't know that, that banana you should put in the fire, not eat during the yajna. So once what happened, there was a temple inauguration, and Prabhupada asked them, the person who was the temple president, who were all handling the inauguration festival and yajna, so much chaos was going on. It was not at all properly prepared. Prabhupada came there, so many guests were there, and Prabhupada was very upset. It's like, why this is not there? Why this is not there? Deities are waiting. Pran Pratishtha ceremony has to go on. Prabhupada was really upset. He was like very, very upset. And devotees were like shivering. Like I said, devotees didn't know much at that point of time, but they did whatever they could. So Prabhupada had to lead. So because like guests have come, you have to take care of them. So then Prabhupada called them and he said, you go bring flour. So this devotee ran. Prabhupada is asking flour. Prabhupada is asking flour. And everybody's like, flour, flour, huh? What is flour? Because they're all scared, they're all nervous, because time, is about to, that good muhurtam is about to get over. So then this one person is like, I will bring, I will bring. So that person got in one cup, and this devotee ran to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, here is the flour. And Prabhupada looked, and it was in a cup with क्या बोलते हैं, माव means flour, flour. You understood? Flour is like maida, like wheat, maav, like powder maav. And Prabhupada is like, you idiot, flour means pushpa, poo. So devotees didn't have that much idea also about what to do. And Prabhupada had to teach them how to cook. Prabhupada told them that this is Krishna, this is how you need to worship, this is how you need to dress, we should not eat this, tell them rules and principles, how to chant, what to do, everything Prabhupada had to teach all alone. But if you see later in his life, he would never take credit. He says, my disciples are brilliant. In fact, in this Rath Yatra, right? In this Rath Yatra, which happens every single year all over the world, all ISKCON temples conduct, there was one particular devotee, his name was Jayanand Prabhu. So this Jayanand Prabhu helped build these carts. And he gave Prabhupada $5,000, his savings money, to Prabhupada. Prabhupada was so grateful that even today in that Rath Yatra cart, that Jayanand Prabhu, that is Prabhupada disciples picture, will be there in the Rath cart. That is how it shows that Prabhupada was very selfless. Not selfless, he never saw himself as a superstar. Okay, I am the person center stage, everybody, worship me. No. Prabhupada never claimed. He is one person. One of the reasons why I like Prabhupada was that he made this Vedic literature accessible to everyone. I remember when Bhagavad Gita was there, it will be there in my puja room. I'm sure it is the same case for everybody. We would hear these nice talks. We would come back home. That's all. But Prabhupada put that book in everybody's hand. I got the book when I was 17 years old. I never knew, Bhagavad Gita is for me. I can read Bhagavad Gita. I thought it was meant to be worshipped. That's all. But Prabhupada put that in me. I come from a lower caste. There was a time when people of lower caste even can't even go to the temple. But Prabhupada didn't care whether you are a woman, whether you are higher class, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether which caste you come from. No. Everybody has a chance and opportunity to worship Krishna. In fact, in ISKCON temples, you will see that women do puja, women do arti. Where do you see that? In ISKCON, you will see that women giving lectures in temple. See, like person like me, completely unqualified, but it is Prabhupada's mercy. It was his mood. It was his vision. He was a visionary. He was concerned for every single person. And why would he have gone at age of 69? For what? Nothing. So much trouble, so much misery he had to go through, simply to give all of us an opportunity to read and know about Krishna, to practice this wonderful bhakti yoga, this Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was wonderful. Prabhupada was so beautiful in his dealings with all his disciples. In fact, there was one person, he used to work at this, I think, Bombay temple. So he had this job of going and buying groceries. But then he was a kleptomaniac. Kleptomaniac is somebody who steals. So he has this habit of always stealing. So what he will do is, whatever money they would give to buy grocery, that remaining change he'll keep it to himself. So so this person did the same. So what he did was, that particular day he bought 5-star chocolate and he hid it in his pocket. And Prabhupada called him. And then when Prabhupada called him, suddenly this 5-star chocolate from his pocket sort of fell down. Prabhupada was like, what's that? In ISKCON, we don't eat chocolate. So anyway, so Prabhupada was like, what is that? So he was very embarrassed. And Prabhupada was very quiet. And then he paid his obeisances and he left. Then what happened was, Prabhupada, he was outside the room somewhere, and Prabhupada came to him and he got this bowl of halwa. And So Prabhupada sort of knew that this person is sort of stealing, but Prabhupada didn't scold him. Prabhupada didn't send him away. Prabhupada didn't humiliate him. Instead, what Prabhupada did, he personally went to the kitchen and cooked a sweet for this man who stole money. And Prabhupada was like, don't eat chocolates. You eat Krishna Prasad. It's very sweet. It's wonderful. Krishna Prasad is mercy of Krishna. Never give up that opportunity where you can personally take Krishna's mercy. Why would you do that? You are a nice boy. Please take to Krishna Prasadam. So you see how Prabhupada handled this person. And this person's heart melted. He was completely a nobody. Nobody, he is not this big person in the temple where everybody knows him or he is this superstar in temple or famous person. He was completely nobody. He was a thief. He had bad habits. But Prabhupada, so this is a vision, this is a mark of a true leader. A leader who's concerned, a leader who embraces, a leader who does not judge. That's how Prabhupada was. Yeah, there are so many pastimes which I can go on, but this was Prabhupada's schedule. So Prabhupada used to sleep only for 3 hours a day. So 1 a.m. he would get up, chant, attend morning Mangala Arti, that is first Arti, then gives Bhagavatam class, temple, then he'll go for morning walk. Then 9 a.m. he would sit and he would this was at a particular place in London. This was his schedule. So then this was what he used to do every single day, most of the times. And then he would dictate letters, instruct devotees or have guests, talk to them. 12 p.m. he takes massage, bathes and then chants. Then 1 p.m. he honors prasadam. 4:30 p.m. he does arti and all of this. In all this time, he would be sitting, and when there is no events during the day where he does not have to meet the guests, where he does not have to write letters or give classes, the whole night, Prabhupada used to sleep only like 11 p.m., get up at 1 p.m., and from 1 p.m. till morning 8 o'clock, he would sit and uh, type, translate with his dictaphone and typewriter. This is in just one place. So Prabhupada's whole life was dedicated 8 hours, 6 hours, whole night. He would only do is because nighttime everybody sleeps and it's quiet, right? So he would sit and translate. So imagine a person at an old age where he's sleeping only for 3 hours, toiling and making sure these books, are printed. It reaches everybody. So you see, there isn't much of entertainment that is happening, in a day. Some entertainment, some relaxation, nothing happens. Proper 24 hours, he is only serving, serving, serving. So this is Prabhupada's achievement. Prabhupada, since he landed in US till he left in 1977, it was only 11 years. He had dictated 22,000 pages of text, written the entire Srimad Bhagavatam till 10th canto. 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam. Reading one verse of Bhagavatam would take us 49 years to complete. So imagine how Prabhupada did. He wrote over 70 books in his 11 years. 700 verses he wrote. Even reading one verse of Bhagavad Gita would take 2 years to complete. Then he did another huge literature, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then he did magazines. He created this magazine called Back to Godhead magazine. He wrote 7,000 letters, which could published in 5-volume books. Only his lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam can be compiled as 11-volume books. He established 108 temples, 146 books, yeah, and then 146 including the volumes in Bhagavatam and all included. Anyway, so then, and then he initiated 10,000 people. In 11 years, he traveled around the globe 14 times. A man who is 69 years of age, alone, he achieved so much. Right now in ISKCON, it's over 50 years. We have 667 temples, 516 million books have been sold, 3 billion prasadam had been distributed. So much achievements. 3,600 home programs where people call Bhakti Vriksha, and there is a lot of 6,000 festivals happen every year. There are 65 farms and eco villages, goshalas all around the world. So these are people appreciated. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was prime minister. In fact, Prabhupada wrote to Jawaharlal Nehru. He also wrote to met Indira Gandhi. So many leaders wrote to Mahatma Gandhi. So many people he met. Presidents received his Bhagavatam set. So Prabhupada has done so much. So Atal Bihari ji has said that how much Prabhupada has done for the world. He was a Vedic cultural ambassador. Prabhupada was. He gave this knowledge of Vedic knowledge to everybody, one and all. So Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna himself. He had proclaimed that the holy name of Krishna will be chanted in every town and village. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who is Prabhupada's guru's guru, he predicted a person will soon appear who will take these teachings of Lord Chaitanya and he will spread all over the world. And Prabhupada fulfilled all these prophecies. This is Srila Prabhupada. So now we have known about Prabhupada. We know what an absolute amazing hero is. But with that hero, we need to have some connection. Na? So how do we have that connection? How do we have that relationship? How do we know him further? We can know him how, by reading his books. Prabhupada says, in my absence, you read the books. What I talk, I have written in these books. You can personally associate with me or be with me through my books. So this is his books. You can get at local ISKCON temples. You can buy online. There is a website called vedabase.io where it has all his books. His biography is also available. Then his biography written by other disciples are also available in the market. Please do get them whenever you can. There is a condensed version called Prabhupada. It is like around 120 rupees or 150 rupees. Please read that. It is brilliant. You will find that in your local temple, again online also. And then you pray. Because I remember Prabhupada is an empowered personality of Krishna, empowered personality. He is empowered by Krishna. He is Krishna's very, very dear to Krishna. By being dear to Krishna, by being dear to Prabhupada, we become dear to Krishna. And Prabhupada, I remember once when I was in London, I was feeling so lonely because I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody there. I was all alone. And I somehow couldn't form friendships with people also. So I was at this particular temple called Bhakti Vedanta Manor, which was donated by this band, it's a boy band, Beatles. So this particular personality called George Harrison, who was Prabhupada disciple, donated this huge bungalow or mansion to Prabhupada. So this is there in London. So I was there and I was at Prabhupada's room. So in that particular mansion, there is Prabhupada's room. So I remember I sat in that room and I was crying. I was like, Prabhupada, I don't have anybody. There's no friend. I don't know who will be there. Like, I'm feeling so lonely. Like I could, because Prabhupada knows, right, what loneliness could be. He didn't have any friends when he went to US. So I am here all alone. Although my mission was to just study my master's, but still, I just felt very lonely. And I remember crying and praying to Prabhupada because Prabhupada was my hero, is my hero, always my hero. But I was strongly felt that I need that physical relationship also, Prabhupada. So I was crying to Prabhupada. I was telling Prabhupada, please be my friend. Can you be my friend? You are my only friend. I remember, I don't know why I prayed like that, but I prayed to him. And immediately you won't notice miraculous things started happening to me. So that day in temple, I was cleaning, I was helping. I asked one person, can I clean the temple hall? So I cleaned. And immediately the pujari called me from nowhere and he gave a garland of the deities to me. And I was like, me? Like I was literally a nobody. And then there was one particular devotee who was also cleaning. He looked at me and he said, you're so wonderful. I'm like, me? I'm like, what? Like, it just didn't make sense. Suddenly I was so invisible in that temple and suddenly people started noticing me. I didn't do anything else. I didn't do anything. And then I saw that Prabhupada was there. Prabhupada was giving me this devotees. Prabhupada was giving me his books. I remember in that room, I sat and read Prabhupada's book. There was one in Prabhupada's room, like I told you, there is one shelf filled with Prabhupada's books. So I took a book and I was reading. And in that book, like when I opened the page, it came like, um, I think it was the interaction between Prabhupada's disciple and him. They said that Prabhupada, after you leave, what will you do? What will we do? And then Prabhupada was like, relationship with a spiritual master is not bound by the body. It is eternal. And Prabhupada tells that particular devotee that I'm always there with you. Through that books, I am talking to you. So I remember through that entire trip, I was reading with Prabhupada, reading Prabhupada's book. It was like, Prabhupada was talking to me and I was having conversation with Prabhupada. And whenever I feel very low, whenever I feel very upset, I go to Prabhupada. I listen about Prabhupada. And then I'm like, okay, I have a purpose in my life, which is to serve Prabhupada. And that helps me overcome all the obstacles in my life. Everybody has ups and downs in my life. So my hero, I saw that he had a purpose. He wanted to serve his spiritual master. My spiritual master is Srila Prabhupada, and I want to please him. And that purpose in my life has given me all the conviction, all that faith, all the strength, all that is necessary for me to overcome anything and everything, be satisfied in life, be happy. And he has given me the best thing in life, which is IYS, which is devotees, which is ISKCON, where a person like me can talk about him. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity given by IYS. And I know it's super late, but I'm really sorry. I tried really hard. There are so many things I didn't say. I tried really hard to comprise the entire life history, short. Hopefully, I did some justice. Please, please, it's very important for us to have that relationship with Prabhupada. What he's done is beyond, it's like superhuman. What he did was. And we must take advantage of this personality. We do hero worship to all these rascals, literally, I'm sorry for using the word. We do all those people who don't deserve it. Here, Prabhupada deserves that kind of worship. Why? Because he was exemplary in everything. How he was with people, how he treated people. Like a farmer's son and Ford company ka grandson. They were same to him. They could sit and access the same amount of attention from Prabhupada. That is how Prabhupada was amazing. Class, creed, nothing mattered to him. He would see dogs. He would see children. When he was in Mayapur, he saw children like fighting with dogs to get. Mayapur was a village in Bengal. He saw the children were fighting with dogs to get some food. And Prabhupada cried. And he said, like, within 10 miles of the temple, no person should go hungry. And that's how Food for Life started, where people were distributing free prasadam. In fact, in London, there is one person called Parshuram Prabhu. You will see him wearing like torn clothes. He had no money. He is a brahmachari living in the temple. But every week, Wednesday and Saturday, I think, he has this kitchen. He will go and for 5,000, 6,000 people, he will cook with his team of volunteers every single week. This person for few days go to the places where people need money, need food, homeless people, and distribute food. And Food for Life is happening all across the world. But I'm saying that how Prabhupada gave Krishna to anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're rich. It's not only for poor people. It's not only for sad people. It's not only for everybody needs love. Everybody needs Krishna. And Prabhupada knew that and was convinced that we all need Krishna, and he gave that and he did that. And I request you all humbly, request you all sincerely that you all, and we all, including me, we all appreciate Prabhupada, read his books. How we appreciate is reading his books every day for half an hour sincerely and follow what he has asked us to do, which was to chant 16 rounds, chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If not 16, at least chant and follow the four regulative principles and give this life to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ekaleshwari Mataji. I think there is one question.
Okay.
Would you like to answer now? Is it okay
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think Anuttama, I'm just reading the questions. Uh, I think this only by Priya. If anything else is left, then you can
Yeah, I saw the question actually.
question, no?
How can we
Okay.
adopt Srila Prabhupada's approach that is so solution oriented in today's complex world? Um, in simple, how Prabhupada did was that Prabhupada saw that he's not the controller. See, when we see the situations, let's say something happened to us. Let's say like we are trying to do something and somebody is not nice to us. What do? We sort of like try to, or let's say like mm, we want a job and we applied, did everything we can, but we are sort of controlling the situation, controlling the narrative. We want the outcome, everything we want to, it should fit our plan. You understood? Everything has to happen according to our vision that we have. If it doesn't happen, it affects us. But Prabhupada was not like that. Prabhupada had the faith that it is Krishna who is the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing happens. I have limited control. Whatever I can do, I will do. Whatever Krishna is giving me, I will accept. Why? Because Krishna is the supreme goal. So Krishna, if Krishna thinks this is best for me, he will give me that. If he doesn't think, if he thinks this is not best for me, he will not give me that. Because Prabhupada had that much faith, he was able to have that very solution based approach. Immediately he is able to think, okay, this is the problem. What happens is when something happens, it takes us like some 5 days for us to like come back to normal, because we are so involved, we are so affected, we are so absorbed in that problem that we are not able to have that clarity. How Prabhupada had that clarity? Because he saw things for what it is. And how he was able to see things for what it is? Because he had that connection with Krishna. I think Anutama in her class, she gave that how if we are connected like a laptop. Right now I am talking like this video call via laptop. This laptop is connected to a charger and the laptop is working properly. Good clarity, everything. So similarly, when we are connected to Krishna, when we are connected to Krishna's instructions, scriptures, acharyas, then that clarity and solution based approach will come. That intelligence Krishna will provide. Scriptures will provide. Okay, na? Priya is there.
Yeah, I think Priya, if you have any further queries regarding it, so you can you can post in here. Yashi has mentioned that thank you for answering. So I see many of you have written in the chat window that you liked the
If
session
there is any
a lot.
question,
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
if there is any question, you can type in the chat window or you can raise your hand in anything. Is there all clear, Mataji? Yes, Krishna gives the intelligence. Prabhupada was always Krishna conscious. He was always conscious of Krishna. So, um, you know, I don't know if I'm eligible to say this in sense that, but if from my experience, I can say that, decision making has become so easy for me. I'm not so experienced in life or experienced in Krishna consciousness to that extent, but I can say with complete conviction that when you come to Kesina, life becomes very easy. There is everything becomes very simple. Like for example, let's say like I want to buy a house, car, something. We make these decisions. What will happen? We'll take a loan. We'll see like somebody is having a car. Oh, I must also have a car. So we make these decisions, or like whether in my job, whether all of that. But if the principle is whatever I'm doing, does it take me one step closer to Krishna? Does it please Krishna? Will it help me in my spiritual life also? If that is the governing principle in your life, then every decision is easy. Even when somebody is hurting us, is it going to help me in any way? Why should I hate the person? Krishna does not hate her. Why I should hate her? Krishna does not hate anybody. So why should I hate anybody? We take lessons from scriptures. So like Prabhupada, this is I'm saying, like somebody like me, I'm able to think like this. So imagine Prabhupada is always Krishna conscious. So for him, coming to solution based approach was very easy because the simple governing principle was Krishna is the controller. My duty is to whether is this pleasing Krishna. That is all. Then everything becomes easy. Okay.
PPT was like super awesome. The photos that we were seeing, it's like I was thinking like from Prabhupada Leelamrita, seeing those exact photos, and it was really awesome. So thank you so much, Ekaleshwari Mataji, for such a wonderful session. If you
Thank you very
have
much.
any, yeah, so if you have any, yeah, so I think I think Neha has given some comment when Saraswati Thakur. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can
please
read.
go ahead. Yeah,
When Saraswati Thakur instructed to Prabhupada for preaching in Western countries, Prabhupada replied, "We are under um, British rule. Can you elaborate more?" Um, so I'll try to say it in summary. That entire pastime is in detail is there much in Leelamrita. It is available in vedabase.io. So you can read there. So what happens is Prabhupada says that, India is in British rule. So freedom is more important, right? Right now the focus should be on freedom of our country because it's so important. Now Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his answer was like, no, this message is even more important. See, for a person, freedom movement, oh my god, India's freedom movement, is something that we all it's personal to us because for most of us we come from India. We know how much we struggled, how much the rule happened, and how much torture we had faced. So then we may think why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that. Because yes, we got freedom from British, but do we have freedom from the problems of our life? Do we have freedom from death? Do we have freedom from disease? Do we have freedom from old age? Do we have freedom from getting birth again, which would not only give us sukha, it will also give us dukkha. So, so his perspective, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was perspective was different. See, like when if you have anybody in architecture, if in the just perspective, they will say in architecture is like when you see something 2D, when you see something 3D, when you see from top bottom, the same like from the flight when you see, right, these big houses, it look like tiny, it will look flat, but if you see towards the house it will look a different shape. So perspectives, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke from that perspective, that freedom from the particular rule is okay, but what bigger freedom that we all should be fighting for is freedom from misery, because this particular world that we live in, it's called Dukhalayam. In Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that this Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel and misery. Like I was reading a news yesterday that two people had argued, and this person took a gun and shot the other person. So life is that cheap these days, where people, you all would have understood, you would all experience that why everybody is fighting, why is everybody like, switch on the TV, people are arguing, switch on the internet, some scandal, some argument between two celebrities is going on, at home people are fighting, everybody is getting offended so quickly, and everybody is a hypocrite. Hypocrite is people are telling something but they will advise everybody but they'll never follow. So Kali Yuga is that age where people tend to slowly become like that. So in that particular age, when people are there, what is your so-called freedom going to help us? People are going to be unhappy. Now you see that there is so much rise in mental health issues in the world. Everybody is, depression is such a common word now. We are free from British rule, but are we free from our miseries? That is where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke, and Prabhupada later understood that. So that is sort of the summary, but more detail about their interaction you can read in Prabhupada Leelamrita at vedabase.io. Okay, so I think it's super late. with this, thank you very much. With this, we can end today's session. Thank you to all the girls who attended today. And thank you for everybody for giving me this opportunity to speak about my favorite hero. Hopefully, he becomes your favorite hero too, and we all can be like fan club members. So, yeah, thank you very much. See you all next week, and yeah.